We're ready.
Okay, welcome to Magical Magnetism. I'm Sarah.
I'm Anna E., and we do monthly tips for the modern girl.
Today we are going to be talking about our top 10 classic books for the modern girl.
Awesome. I'll go first. My first pick is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and it's definitely a harder read. I wouldn't recommend this for an elementary school reader. It's got some heavy subjects going on. Nothing inappropriate, but a little heavier. Definitely for the high school age. The basic underlying theme or the big takeaway from this book is always making the right choice, even in the face of heartbreak. And you'll be vastly rewarded for those choices. They're hard and they're awful and painful and just a whole bunch of horrible things. But in the end, it's always best to do what's right.
My first choice is Anne of Green Gables, which is a book that is great for all ages, and it starts a long series that you can take with you forever. It's just a fun and humorous read for the whole family, and Anne has so much gumption, and she's whimsical, and she's just everything that I would want to be or I would want my daughters to be. And so I think if you want to raise a brave girl, then you should give her a copy of the Anne series for sure.
That's really good. I like that. A brave girl. She's also a ginger.
She is a ginger, which is basically the most important thing.
Basically the most important thing about that
It's
book.
the theme of the whole book.
My next one is The Secret Garden by Frances Burnett. This is a fantastic read. I would say this is appropriate for
Third grade?
Third grade?
Anybody who's getting into chapter books, this is a good one.
Perfect. And it's like a fantasy without being fantasy. It's grounded absolutely in hard reality. But it's all about, that deep desire to be one with growing things and, organic friendships and learning that life isn't always what you think it is. Mystery isn't always as mysterious as you think it is. It's a solid, good read. I have many, many copies of this book. This one was purchased back when books were $3. It
smells divine. I wish there was like a sensogram for this.
Totally. Or they could bottle this. I would buy old book perfume.
I would, for sure.
Oh, I would totally buy it. I don't know why I sang just now. I would totally buy old book perfume.
It's like the heavens open.
It is. It's so nice. Right. So this one has been read multiple times. I've got it in hardback. I've got it in a velvet cover. I've got it in like fancy
with the gold leafing. Yeah, on the side.
Yeah, love the gold leafing. It's
too.
true. It reminds me of Bibles. I don't know why. Right. Good book. I would give this to every girl, no matter what her circumstances, no matter what her reading tastes are, because they will find something in this to latch on to and really fall in love with.
Agreed. Totally agreed. My next book is Christy. I love this book so much. I think it's the most perfect love triangle that has ever been written. It makes me want to go teach in the mountains and fall in love with a Scotsman and get married and live there, which is definitely not my usual, pension for life. But it's just a great story about coming of age and, again, making those tough decisions, but coming out a stronger and better version of yourself on the other side of it. And it's just... There's a doctor who is a red-headed Scotsman, and you just can't beat that.
Really, there isn't an area on this planet where you could beat that.
There's not. Red-headed Scotsman.
Red-headed Scotsman doctor.
And it's partially based on the life of Catherine Marshall's grandmother, so it's semi-autobiographical.
Okay, so this is my third book. This is The Princess Bride by William Goldman. It is a adventure book. It is ridiculous. It is hilarious.
So funny.
So funny. I'm sure you've seen the movie or at least heard of the movie because it's kind of a cult classic. Right. So adventure and silly and while the girl in this is a little
wishy-washy,
wimpy, little stereotypical, helpless, all that. I try to overlook that because sometimes you got to let those things go to get a good read. And this is absolutely a good read.
I feel like our list too is balanced enough with a lot of good, strong female leads that, one kind of...
We can have a silly read. And there's no reason why girls can't love adventure. And I see no reason why we should let adventure books go just because they don't have a strong woman character,
Agreed.
We can be strong without being in books. It's a thing. It happens. Happened for centuries.
It does.
Okay.
My third book is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, which, if you haven't read The Marches, then you are not living your life right. Let's be honest. And I think a lot of people try and write it off as sentimental and kind of schmaltzy, but I think there's a difference between being sentimental and schmaltzy and having a moral compass. And I feel like that sounds very antiquated, and I don't mean it in that way, but in finding out who you are and just sticking to those guiding principles despite what the fashionable set of your time says is difficult. And I think that they do that really well. And just they grow up and they make real life choices, and they're not easy, and life is messy and hard sometimes, but they handle it with such kind of grace and alacrity, and I really like that. And so please, if you have not read Little Women, I don't care if you're an 87-year-old man, go out, buy it, you will love it.
It's good for you. It's good for your soul. That is like soul reading.
Indeed, right here.
So my next book is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and Through the Looking Glass is actually combined in here, but Through the Looking Glass wasn't as big of a deal for me as Alice's Adventures. This is it is an absolutely fanciful.
Fantastical?
Ooh. So this is not a heavy-handed read. It's light and it's fun, and I like to read it on the beach. I like to read it if I go out on little woodsy adventures. I like to take a book with me to sit in the middle of the woods and do nothing. This is it, because you can pick it up and read it in the middle, in the end, whatever, as long as you're familiar with the general story, or if you've read it all the way through once. This is something that you can just pick up and read your favorite parts over and over again. My boyfriend and I frequently quote this. Lewis Carroll is sort of like the word magic man, so definitely good solid read.
Yeah, agreed. My fourth book is another by Louisa May Alcott. It is Rosenbloom, which is probably one of her lesser known novels. It's actually the sequel to Eight Cousins, but you can read them alone. They don't have to go together. It is my favorite romance by far. I think it is the most adorable, sweet, slow burn romance where the characters don't even really know they're in love until the last 50 pages or so. And she is this kind of flighty socialite, and he is this stalwart nerd. And it makes my heart happy. And it's, again, with the Louisa May Alcott leanings, there is a bit of what are you willing to compromise about yourself in order to fit in with your peers, and how can you rise above that, which I think is just an important universal message about how do we stick to what it is that we say that we believe. And so one of my favorites, it's like after Little Women, the next best Louisa May Alcott book, I feel.
My last book is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, because I always want to call him C.H. Lewis. I just went through that. This is the second book in the series. The first one is The Magician's Nephew, which was all about how the wardrobe actually became the wardrobe, how it became the magical place and the gateway to the fancy things. This is a really solid Christian values-based book. There's a lot of undertones of Jesus and teaching and making those right decisions and all of that. You could arguably go through the entire series, and I think many scholars have, and have paralleled it with the story of Jesus and the Bible, all of that in general. Yeah. For me, when I read it, I don't really think of this as a Jesus book, or a Jesus series at all. I think of this as a really amazing, fanciful, beautiful world. It's just really nice to get lost in. And when I read a book, I like to get lost. Like, I don't typically read contemporary novels because that's life and that's what I live every day. I'm not into that. When I read a book, I want to go somewhere, and this absolutely takes you somewhere amazing.
All right, my final book is, I'm too short for this. My final book is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. And I went through one summer when I was about 15 and read every book that Betty Smith wrote because I loved this book so much, but I can save you that heartache. This is the best one. Go for it. I constantly come back to this book. I read it probably at least once a year. And if you just are a lover of words and a lover of learning and kind of figuring out what the world is about. This is a great book. Francie leads, again, a very hard life. I don't know why I picked these books. I've had like a relatively easy life, if we're going to be honest.
And maybe that's why.
Maybe, yeah.
I like to go to a world that I've never been to, and you like to read about situations you've never been in.
The struggle is real in this one.
Struggle is real.
But it's just about overcoming, and so many of the books that I like are about figuring out who you were. And I guess maybe I had a hard time with that as a kid, but I just like stories where people can become things that aren't typical and still be okay with that. And this is a great book of that. It's also a book that doesn't follow a regular narrative plot arc. There's not one big overriding climax. It's much more episodic in the way that it's laid out, and there are lots of little things that happen along the way, but it is also just one of the most beautifully written books that I have probably ever read, and it is an all-time favorite. I love it.
All right, well, those were our top 10 classic books for the modern girl. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more. We'll be uploading monthly.
Also, we're going to put Amazon links down below to all of these books in case you want to check them out yourself. And tell us in the comments your own favorite classic books that you would like to share with others.
We definitely love to hear them and pass them on. So thanks, and we'll see you next month.